Hi, Sportster Pavel here. We got a 4-speed Sportster transmission. It started out in 1952 as the K model, the flathead version of the Sportster. Got beefed up a lot in 54 when they bumped the displacement up from 45 to 54 cubic inches. Got strengthened and refined a little bit. Same basic thing, but just bigger shafts, touched up for the Sportster in 1957 and ran till the 5-speed transmission came out in 91, I believe. So a long run, rock solid transmission. Beautiful, simple, very compact. Vance Breeze used one in his Streamliner. You can put 150 horsepower through this thing. Let's go over how it works right now. This video is just going to be the principles of it, because you can see I built this fixture for a redesign I'm doing. So let's go over all the gears, how they work, all right? Okay, so let's turn it this way so we can face this little camera we got and you can see what's going on. Focus it, make sure everything's hunky-dory. Okay, the simplest way, I wonder if I can reach one of these main shafts. Here we go, I got some extra main shafts here. This is the main shaft here. This is the clutch gear, they call it, because the clutch fits here. This is like right here. This clutch isn't really correct in here, don't worry about that. This is the Kickstarter gear that we'll go over on a different video. But right now, this is an earlier model. This thing is this shaft right here. You see the gear, it's connected. Let's see if I can show it on the side camera here, like that, right? Easy money. In it fits the main shaft. They slide together. The main shaft has this big, and it goes like that. So it's sitting like this. You can see they're completely independent. They'll spin, and they're shouldered up here, so they stop, dead stop. Understanding that, let's start with the bike in neutral. It's parked, so this is the shaft that goes back to the chain and goes back to the rear wheel. So this is stopped. This is spinning, the bike's idling, right? So you can watch, see, this isn't moving, but the engine's running. That's neutral. Now what neutral means is that this sliding gear, this gear slides back and forth, is not connected to this gear, and there's dogs on this side too, and it's not connected to this gear. Similarly, and that's this fork here doing that work. Then down here, this one moves. Similarly, this gear isn't connected to this gear, and it's not connected to that. There's a gap between the dogs that you make sure is right when you set the tranny up. We'll do that in another video. And there you go. If you can only have one set of dogs at a time or the thing's locked up and blows up. So that's why you have to realize this small gear drives the countershaft gear. That's connected to the countershaft. This gear is connected to the countershaft. The sliding gear, it's got splines that connect it so it can slide back and forth, but it rotates with the countershaft. This gear has just got a smooth bore inside of it. So this gear can spin and spin independent. That's part of the whole neutral thing. See how it's not moving? Then this gear here, the low gear, it's also smooth on the inside. Finally, this gear up here is a smooth bore, so it can spin freely. The way the transmission works, you're in neutral now. So this slides in like that. Now you're in, see, we're going to go the easy way to understand, from 4th gear down. You're in 4th gear now. What's 4th gear? Main gear. Let me make sure I'm focused again here. Main gear is this shaft connected to this shaft. It's just one-to-one. Simple as that. So what you do when you slide this here, this is connected to this shaft. So this slides forward. Now you've connected this gear to this gear. Since this gear is part of this shaft, it's one piece. This gear connects to the output shaft, the main shaft. And there's a little slop here because the dogs aren't precise fit. They can't be. They got to slide in while everything's moving and flying around. But now it's one-to-one. Every rotation on this side gives you one rotation on this side. That's 4th gear. Power just goes from here to here. All these other gears are spinning, but they're really not connected to anything, right? So they're just idling. The important thing is that we know this gear is connected to the countershaft and this one is. But since this one is not, since neither dog is in, this one can move free, This one can move free and the tranny isn't locked up. All the power goes through here, and these are just spinning, asynchronously. Okay, so now you're going to downshift. You're going to go into third gear. You could go through false neutral. Sometimes if you don't make a nice solid downshift from fourth to third, you're in neutral again. That's because you're right here and it quite hasn't popped in. But a little bit of work here. Let's see if we can get it. There. Now it's in now it's in third. So you come into third. Third gear. Now you're using this counter shaft down here, which makes sense, just like a Chevy transmission, a Muncie. This small gear drives this big one, so that's a step down. We know this sliding gear is attached to the shaft. So this gear here is powering this gear, which usually just spins free, right? This gear is smoothbore on the inside. So this gear can spin free, but now that we've slid this in, it connects this gear to this gear, and this gear, the sliding, the movable gear, is connected to the main shaft. So out it goes. So power goes from here to this gear that spins, to this gear that's splined, to this gear that's not splined, then to this splined gear, and out to shaft. Okay, so then you're going to go from third into second. Third into second. This goes here. Then this one, let's see if we can, there, it goes like that. So now what you've done, once again, it's using the counter shaft, small gear to the big gear. We know the movable gear is splined, so it's always going to turn with the counter shaft. But now we've connected it to this gear. So this gear now can drive this gear, so the power goes down to here, and then up, and this gear is splined, it's connected. So now you're in second gear. Cool stuff. Okay, so now you're going to downshift. First, you can pop it into neutral, which we've already seen is here. So, no movement. There you go. Then you're going to go all the way into first. Oh, and it went. How cool. So now it's in first gear. First gear, once again, is using the counter shaft. So it goes from the spur gear, from the clutch gear down to the counter shaft gear here. We know that this one is splined and attached, this gear here. So it's now slid in, and so it's driving. This gear is usually a smoothbore. It just spins free, except now you've connected it to the counter shaft. So now the power can come here, through the shaft to splines to here. Then the dogs take power to here, and then you can see first gear, it's a big step down from this tiny, small gear, smallest gear in the set, to this biggest gear in the set. And now you're in first gear. Same thing, there's slop, because the dogs can't fit perfect and have everything work. So pop it back into neutral. There you go, back into neutral. Now there's dash 57 part numbers here. They've kept part numbers all the way from 1957 for some of the gears, and there's washers. We'll get into that in the next video. But the strength of this transmission is monstrous. Now, my racer buddies say if it's going to blow up, it blows up in second gear. You can see why. In high gear, well, there's not that much to blow up. It's just connected here to here. In third gear, well, it's using these middle gears, but there's less torque in third gear. It's a higher gear. But in second gear, when this one goes over here, let's see if we can get it to pop in. There, I think that got it. Maybe not. There we go. So now, you're more in the center of the shaft. Your power is coming down here. It's going to the sliding gear, then here, and then back up. And you can see any flexing, any bending, any misalignment, it tends to be worse than second. First gear, when you go all the way over here, well, these two gears, they're really close to the inside of the transmission, to the bearings. So there's not a lot of, it's tighter. Any inaccuracies, any wobble, it's less here. So first gear, surprisingly, they don't blow up. What first gear does is it pops out. And that's because the dogs here get worn, and under torque, it just pops apart, and it pushes this, rotates the whole thing. So that's some of the stuff. We'll go over next the different kind of fundamental main shafts we got. There's 3 different kinds. Okay, there's 3 general types of clutch gear main shaft combinations. The earliest and the first uses a dry clutch. That's, I think, up to 1970. They used the dry clutch. You can tell, how can we do this for you? Here's a good way to see it. So it's got this seal here. It's very similar to the later model clutch shaft, which is this one. This is the wet clutch shaft. Like this basket is a wet clutch basket, not a dry clutch basket. The main shaft that goes with this dry clutch is hollow. That's because to operate the dry clutch, you come from the sprocket side, from the chain back to the thing. There's a hole all the way through this shaft, little spacers, and then you press here and it releases the clutch out here. They went electric start. 1967, they went to a dual row, and the clutch gear in here is much longer. Here, let's see if we can pull it off. So there you can see it's got this big gap for an O-ring that goes in here. It takes, the clutch that slides on has a 2-row Torrington bearing here, those little needles. It has 2 rows to keep it more stable so the electric start thing doesn't get all whacked out. Once again, it needs a hollow main shaft. I doubt 1,000,000 to 1 you could see this. It's hard to do backwards, isn't it? But hollow main shaft, same thing. When they went to the wet clutch, I believe 1970, it's kind of closer to this one, closer to the old manual, the old dry clutch spur gears or clutch gear. So it's a similar gear. It doesn't have, here, let's see. You can see, here, let's do it like that. So you can see it's got this little, the old dry clutch has got this little extension here where the seal presses in. On the wet clutch, you don't get any of that. The main shaft's solid because the wet clutch works by, from this side. There's a release that goes in the cover, which I think is bad practice, but that's what you're stuck with. So those are the 3 general types of main shafts. Otherwise, the thing's very similar from 1952 to 1990. It's an amazing bit of engineering. And 4 gears can be enough. It's nice. I had a 5-speed late model, 96. It was nice on the freeway, but around town and that, 4 speeds is more than enough. And it's so tight and so compact and so rock solid. So I think that's all we want to talk about, how the gears work today. Next video will be all the shims and spacers and stuff when you put it together. Okay? Thanks a lot. Please subscribe. I got to get to my 1,000 visitors so I can quit my day job. Thank you so much.